Hey guys, it's ArchieLuxury on the Paul Pluter channel. Today guys, I'm doing paid review M7, and this is it's a review that only came in not so long ago, but I've decided to make this video because it was a really interesting question. Before I start this review, let's do a quick wristwatch check. What am I wearing? I'm wearing a No, I'm not. I'm wearing my Rolex Daytona. Rolex Daytona. There we go. Daytona. That's a great watch. Okay, this is for Chris, and Chris says, he says to me, "Hey mate, just found your channel after I watched the Milgauss assassination video on Watchfinder. I'm a 30-year-old looking to get my first luxury watch. It seems we have a lot in common, as I'm only interested in Rolex. Lucky for me, the models I like are on the cheap end: Milgauss, Air King, Oyster Perpetual. After watching a few of your vids, you actually live really close to me, so I thought I'd shoot you an email and see what you think. Anyway, I'm interested in these watches. Should I buy new or second hand? If second hand, from where? I travel to Melbourne and Sydney a lot, so either Brisbane, Melbourne or Sydney works for me. Do you get any kickbacks from these places? Will drop your name when I buy. Cheers, Chris." Very, very good question. So, what do I recommend? You're a 30-year-old man, so, you've been around the traps a little bit, and you want to get into luxury wristwatches. What do I recommend? That's a very good question. Very, very good question indeed. Obviously, Rolex is a very good choice for a man to get. Look, the best advice I can give you is Rolex Steel Sports. Rolex Steel Sports. Yes, I am wearing a two-tone. Daytona, which I really do love this. I do love this watch, but I got to be honest with you. This is kind of my dress genre. This is kind of I've always wanted a Daytona. That's kind of like a very, very expensive, hard to get model. A little bit easier in two-tone, but I've got an exotic dial. It's got that blue dial with Arabics, which was done for a limited time, so it's kind of special. What I think is the best Rolex, and I've had heaps of Rolex. I've literally had, I'd say I probably owned in my life 200 to 300 Rolex, because I worked by selling watches. I was a mini dealer. I didn't own them all at the same time, but I've had a lot of Rolexes. And, as I'm now 46 years old, 47 in October. Fuck, Arch, you're getting old. Yeah, I am. I really appreciate three-hand. When I say three-hand, we mean hours, minutes, seconds. It's a very, very, very simple sort of face. And I got to tell you, if I was in your shoes there, 30-year-old man, so you want something that you can use for work, it's going to be great for, for what you can wear everywhere, man. Whether you're going out with the bitches, whether you're going out with the wife, whether you're going out with the boys, it's something you can take everywhere. You don't have to, you've got to be careful with any Rolex, any watch, any expensive item you get, but you could go boating, you could go, you could just live life. So my honest opinion is, I think if you're getting one watch, I'd always go Rolex Steel Sports. Rolex Steel Sports. I think that is the best genre to go to. The Rolex Steel Sports models, the simplest ones, as you've mentioned there is the Milgauss, the Air King, the Oyster Perpetuals. They're not actually part of the sports lineup, but there's four key three-hand watches. They are the Rolex Milgauss, the Rolex Air King, the Rolex Explorer 1, and the Rolex Submariner, no date. There we go. So that's the four steel sports models in the range that I think are amazing pieces to have. What is the best? What is the best? Well, I think they're all fabulous. And I got to tell you, as I get older there, I really love just simple, easy to use watches. And even as I'm getting older, the date function, the date, you've got to fuck around to set the date. Then you've got months where you have 30 days or 31 days. It's boring. So I honestly would say to you, get a Rolex Steel Sports 3-hand. They aren't that cheap. No Rolex is that cheap. I mean, seriously, the cheapest Rolex on the market is actually a lady's Oyster Perpetual. Then you've got the men's Oyster Perpetual. Oyster Perpetual, they're basically just an automatic Rolex with no date. That is a fantastic watch. But just for that little bit extra money, I'd try and go a little bit sporty. I think the Explorer 1, it's famous for the 3, 6, and 9 on the dial. It's famous for a black dial, 3, 6, 9. It was originally a high-grade chronometer movement wristwatch. So that was the big thing with that. Now, that model was famous. It's associated with the Edmund Hillary summit to Mount Everest, the first man to go to Mount Everest, the top of Mount Everest. Now, I don't think he actually did wear an Explorer as such, but it was a high-grade chronometer Rolex. So the Explorer 1 is kind of purest, true to form, so to speak. Then you've got something like the Milgauss. The Milgauss was made for scientists to be not affected by magnetic rays, magnetic fields and that. So that's a great scientist, engineers type watch. It's got the funky as fuck jagged second hand. Then we go on to the Air King. The Air King, that's a classic Rolex that was for aviators. It's kind of just a high-grade watch for the aviation industry. And then we can go the Rolex Submariner no date. Now, I say no date. Technically, the date version is called the date, the Submariner date, whereas the no date's not actually called a no date, but you understand what I mean there. It's funny, in the early noughties, early 2000s, the no date was kind of shunned upon. Now, it's a star. It really is a big star. People love the no date. And I must admit, I've owned a few, and I really do. I enjoyed that watch there completely. So what would I say if you're going to get a Rolex? First off, try and get sports. Rolex Steel Sports 3-hand. I think they are a fabulous watch there. The other thing is, where would I buy them? Well, if you go to any of the authorized dealers, you'll find out the Rolex supply disaster. See, what's happened is all the steel sports models are in limited supply. What's happened is China has this burdening middle class. They're all into Western world affluence, and you guessed it, Rolex, please! Rolex, Rolex, Rolex. The Chinese, not only do they buy all the baby formula at the chemist warehouse, they've taken over the Rolex sports market. So you're going to find that it's very difficult to actually find one of these watches at an authorized dealer. You could say, well, can I go on a list? A lot of the time the answer is no. The Chinese will basically they'll buy whatever they have to buy to get sports models. So you can't compete. You cannot compete at all. My best advice to do is to find a second-hand, a pre-owned dealer. They call this the grey market. Grey market because they're not officially endorsed by Rolex to deal in these type of things. So I love that. I think that's the best way. Look, it depends where you are as to what you look for. Myself, I got to tell you guys, where would I look? Where would I go? I think in Australia there's many good dealers. Probably the best place is Melbourne. There's quite a few good dealers in Sydney. There's a few in Brisbane. In Brisbane thereself, you've got Vintage Watch Co. Vintage Watch Co. has a store in Sydney and a store in Brisbane. They are really good guys to deal with. In Sydney, you've also got Vintage Watch Co. They've got a store in the Strand Arcade. Another great dealer in Sydney is Sydney Watch Exchange. Young Vietnamese guy, Cove, absolutely straight as a die. He's a really cool guy. I like him a lot. In Melbourne, there's a lot of dealers there. There's my good friend Shonny from European Watch Gallery. He's very good in Collins Street. You've got Watch Time with Lewis there. I like his shop in the Block Arcade. There's many good dealers. If you do a Google search, you'll find some dealers there. Look, my best advice to you if you're buying your first watch would be to buy it from a bricks and mortar dealer. I would probably, strike up a bit of a conversation, say, hey, I'm looking for my first Rolex. I want to buy Rolex Steel Sports, 3-hand, no date. Let me know if something comes in, and that's what I would do. Now, as far as kickbacks for me, I don't get any kickbacks. Dealers do thank me. I don't actually get any money from any of the Australian dealers, the grey market deal. No one gives me a brass razoo. The only thing I do get is a few dealers throw me some amazing deals because I'm the pontiff, and I've mentioned their name and they've managed to get some good sales out of it. Hey, they flicked me a good deal. So, okay, so to answer your question, anyway, I'm interested in these watches. Should I buy new or second hand? Well, I got to be completely frank and honest with you there. I don't think you can actually get these things. I don't think you can get them brand new. You don't understand the whole Rolex market. Steel Sports Rolex, very tough to get. There used to be the Air King was a little bit soft. The Explorer 1 was a little bit soft. Now, no way in the fucking world. They are really, any Steel Sports Rolex, very hard to get. My best advice is, as I say there, you're going to be paying. The thing about Rolex is it costs a lot of money to buy in, but you don't lose a lot of value. So if you had to exit out, you're not going to lose your shirt. Your money is pretty well safe. Give or take 10-15%, that you'd possibly lose there. But that's the difference between wholesale and second-hand retail. My best advice is to find a bricks and mortar dealer. Now, I'm in Australia. There's many good dealers around the world. In America, there's Jewelers on Time. He used to sponsor me, but he's decided not to do that anymore. There's great. I've heard good things. I've never dealt with him, but there's European Watch Company in Boston, Massachusetts. And also, a lot of people have said some good things about David S.W. Now, I haven't dealt with them because I'm in Australia and I deal with Australian dealers mainly. But there is a lot to be said for buying from a bricks and mortar store. And it's, I don't think it's worth establishing a relationship with authorized dealers. They are really, I don't see much benefit in that. But if you build a relationship with a grey market dealer, a used dealer, I think that's a great way to go. So that's what I certainly would do. I think, honestly, Steel Sports Rolex, you can never go wrong. Your money is safe. Stay away from, sometimes it's very frustrating because the same money you could buy a watch in Australia for, you could easily get a nice Breitling with complications. You could get a nice, there's so many nice brands that are way cheaper. I've always thought Omega is a bit of a compromise. You're better off to pay a bit more, get Rolex. Breitling is, I love Breitlings, I really do, but they're fucking soft. You cannot buy that brand new. Cannot buy that brand new. You must buy it secondhand. Really fucking soft. That's Breitling. One compromise I will mention is if you don't have enough money for a Rolex, there is Rolex sister brand Tudor. Now Tudor, I'd buy something in the Black Bay lineup. That's kind of a retro styled sports watch. They're kind of more affordable. They generally seem to be less than half of Rolex pricings for a similar model. Basically, a lot of the Tudors themselves they now have in-house Tudor movements. So they're really a big improvement from Tudors of yesteryear. They're still a little bit down. It's kind of like the difference between an Audi A4 and a Volkswagen Passat. It tends to be the technology filters through, but very worthwhile, very worthwhile indeed. So if at the end of the day Rolex is difficult and it is expensive, I would possibly go Tudor. So that's a little bit of advice there. I hope that helps. Go and have a look. Take your time. Don't be in a rush. And I'd tend to buy, a couple-year-old box papers. Example. It's nice to have box and papers. Get your first one. Buy it pre-owned. Box papers. Example. Pay a bit more. Buy it from a good dealer. And hey, just keep it. Don't buy, sell. Don't turn into a watch dick. These flippers. They're just keep it. Enjoy it and love it. I'm Paul Pluto. This has been a paid review, M7. This is for advice on getting your first, what's the best first Rolex for a 30-something guy. I hope it's helped. Remember, like, subscribe, tell your fuckhead friends, and don't forget to put a few nasty comments down below. And until next time, guys, ciao fuckers, keep watching. And don't forget, I got a couple channels. ArchieLuxury channel, I've got the Paul Pluto channel, and I've got ArchieLuxury Corporate. So please join me on those channels, and until next time, ciao fuckers. Okay, cut. Great vid, Arch. Hi guys, Paul Pluto, the method actor who plays Archie.